Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Oh, you look really different without your glasses on.
Do I?
Yeah.
Eyes are
You
still
you
beat.
can keep them off if you want. It's
All right. Oh, and I forgot my coffee and everything. This is what's great about Wi-Fi and iPads and all that. All right. So yeah, we can keep talking, and I'm just gonna go get a coffee.
Oh, that works out perfect.
This is gonna be completely uninteresting to people.
Hey, you. I'm Allie Tome. You're listening to It's Supposed to Be Funny, caricature podcast. And that sultry male voice you just heard was none other than the incredible, probably did this entire interview on the back of a unicorn, warrior of the arts, Joe Bluhm. What an intro. He sat down with me. He talked about his comic anthology he's working on called Satellites that he's doing with a couple of other artists. Sounds incredible. And of course, we'll go into detail about that. And we also talked about where we came from, because of course, the influences we've had, because of course, and also went into a little bit about surrounding ourselves with the community of artists and the benefits of that, which I'm a huge proponent of. I learned a long time ago to always see myself as needing improvement all the time and having other people tell me that I need to improve. And I think that's really valuable. So we talk about that a little bit. So let me just go ahead and wave my giant magical wand here, and we'll get right into it, beginning with our discussion about his comic anthology called Satellites.
Fictionally created based on the reality. The reality is pretty simple, which you've expressed, the idea that you remain like a passive passenger.
So, I guess, tell me about your Kickstarter. I was looking at the pictures, and I'm just so excited to see these stories, because just the artwork, just those one pages you put up on the Kickstarter are phenomenal.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Well, I didn't do a lot of comics growing up, and I didn't read a lot of comics growing up, but obviously with illustration and caricature and storytelling on any capacity, whether it's through something like this podcast that you're doing, or working in animation or children's books, you have this urge to tell stories and to illustrate. And I have a lot of friends here that are into comics, and I've never been into them, but I appreciate them.
Yeah.
So when Moonbot Studios was formed, and that's, again, Moonbot Studios was formed by William Joyce and Brandon Oldenburg and Lampton Enix, but it was really built around Bill Joyce, who did Roly Poly Oly, Meet the Robinsons, Rise of the Guardians, Robots, all that stuff, because this is his hometown. I came down here to freelance and do some storyboards, and I've met him, fell in love with the energy that he has and the project we started on, which we won an Academy Award for in the long run, and I felt the need to stay here, so I've been here for about almost 6 years now. But at the beginning, it was me and my friend Adam Volker. We were the only two artists here, and we saw some comic anthologies popping up. It became sort of a little surge around 2009, 2010, I think. There was some that some artists at Animation Studios put together, like one called Flight. There was one called Out of Picture. There's a couple called The Anthology Project, and that's by artists named Joy Ang and I think Nick Thornbury. That's also when Kickstarter started happening, and so we just immediately said, all right, we're going to do a comic collection. We're going to do it through Kickstarter. That'll be easier. And I had been self-publishing. I learned through some friends how to put out some books on my own and control them without worrying about a publisher, and I really enjoyed that process because you get to control everything, and it pays for itself if you can put a little bit of money up front.
Right.
So I published my first book, Rejects, right before then, and then I published a couple other books through friends under a little imprint that I came up with called Art Squared Publishing. And then I finished my last book, Sketch Infectus, which was a collection of sketchbook stuff that I had just kept over, I don't know, 10 years or so. And I was about to throw away when I was leaving New York, and my friend urged me not to.
Yeah.
So I just got off self-publishing, and we were talking about doing comics, and I just done a comic for my friend Jeremy Townsend for the Exaggerated Features, and it was one of the last issues that I was involved in. I really got that itch again to do comics, and we talked about it. We hired some people a couple years later, and this story is really long. I'm sorry, it's meant to be short.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it.
We hired a bunch of artists at Moonbot, and we started to grow and take on some other projects. And then I realized that about 3 or 4 of the artists we hired were way into comics, and they wanted to do that for a living. So we brought up the idea again. Everyone was really pumped, and we started working on them. In the end, we had about 9 people that were finished and ready, and it was a chance for all of us with different disciplines and backgrounds to illustrate a story and just do it however we want. It's a nice release from
totally.
day job. Because, there's nothing to complain about. We make art for a living, but you still have the stresses of the day, and you still have the client to deal with, and you still have the politics of working with other people. And there's something nice to go home and say, you just wash all that away
Yeah.
and focus on what you want to do, how you want to do it. It's always, I think, healthy to have one thing set aside like that. But
Yeah,
that's
'cause-
what's really fun too, is that no one was given a theme.
Mhm.
A lot of times in anthologies, people want to do themes, and I get that, and that's cool. But with this one, it was really, our theme was really like, do whatever the hell you want in
Mhm.
your style, and just has to mean something to you, has to be important to you, just whatever.
Yeah.
And we didn't even really say that; they just kind of ended up being that. So people wanted to do what they were. I think they felt like they were shackled with whatever they were working on, and this was breaking free to do this story. So some of them are very serious. Like Vanessa's is very dark and a little sexual. Jeremy's is hilarious and it's sort of a a society comment. Mine is a sort of a desire to break free and do your own thing through children's story, but it's fantastic, like a little bit of a Miyazaki animated feel.
Yeah.
So everyone kind of just gravitated towards the type of storytelling that they want or how they feel and their personality is.
Yeah. The artwork's different and then the stories are different, so it's gonna be really cool. But
Yeah. We just set up satellitescomic.com. So instead of trying to search for the Kickstarter, you can just go there and it'll take you right to the page.
okay, cool. Yeah, and then I'll make a note of that on my website too, just to put that link, all the other links that you mentioned. I'll go back and add all those. As of the airing of this podcast, the Kickstarter is halfway done. And even though it's already been funded, they could always use your support and your contributions to make the book even better than what they planned on making. So hop on over before February 17th to back the project. And if you're listening to this podcast after February 17th, you can always check out their project at satellitescomic.com. Now let's hop back into the conversation where Joe Bluhm's talking about working at Moonbot Studios.
So when you see things like that, it reminds me of how nice this place is at Moonbot Studios, where they don't want to hire in waves. They don't want to hire contracted just for projects. They want a core team that's here and can rely upon it and build a family in this town and know that they have a job if they want one. Most of the team that I know here that's been here, there's not people coming in and out unless they choose to. I've been here almost 6 years. My friend Adam's been here almost 6 years. Some other people like Bevan, who's in the Kickstarter, in our Satellites comic, he's been here 5 years, I think. And it's great because you build a team and you build a rapport and then you know each other and know how to make a film stronger because you don't have to learn dynamics of people so much.
Right.
You start to know each other and that's really good.
Yeah, it's nice to have that when you're talking, kind of that unspoken. Oh, I know what you mean.
Mhm.
You don't have to explain yourself all the time. Since everybody knows you,
Yeah.
it's really easy to be like, you start a sentence, they're like, no, I got you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
I
you
didn't
can
even have
make
to
a
say
weird.
anything. I said the.
It's amazing how I've clicked with Bill that way really fast, where he'll say, "Oh, can you do the blue, blue, the little thing with the," and I know exactly what he's talking about, and I'll paint it. But you also don't have to navigate politics of getting to know people as much when you know a
Right,
team
yeah.
really well, so you don't hold back when you're giving feedback or when someone says, "Ooh, here's an idea," and it's not quite right, and you know you should say it's not quite right. If it's someone new, you might want to try to be soft and nice, but if you know them really well and you hang out and have a beer every Friday with them for years, then you can say, that's not so hot.
Yeah.
And they won't take it personally. We'll move forward.
Right.
That's crucial because it's easy to get insecure and defensive when it's a creative, collaborative group. And I think that happens a lot in this industry, and that's probably hurting the films that come out.
Yeah. I mean, you can apply that to any. I think there's a big problem with artists not being able to take that kind of criticism.
Yeah.
Just not surrounding themselves with other artists and being able to handle that kind of work. So
Mhm.
finding artists that are able to collaborate like that
Mhm.
is, I don't want to say rare, but I think that there's so many artists out there that it's, when you find them, people who can take criticism, be like, okay, I know what you mean. It's not personal, obviously. So
Yeah.
like, I'll make it better because of what you said, because obviously, I'm not right all the time.
And that's also not how you're going to make something excellent, is
Yeah,
by
exactly.
saying, "Oh, good." I mean, did you see the movie Whiplash that just came out?
No, because I thought
It's maybe it's
when you
not.
said
Maybe it's just
Whiplash, I
about
thought
out.
of the roller derby movie.
Yeah, I know.
with
That's there's
so
yeah,
I'm gonna
there's
go with no.
there's a new one. It's about drumming and passion and stuff. And I think it's an Oscar contender. But I just watched it the other day. It's incredible. This one line that it's a little extreme, but it's true. It says nothing good has come of the two words "good job." And that when you're trying to
Yeah.
create something, when you're trying to do something good, getting a pat on the back will not push you to work harder. And that's why I left school. That's why I dropped out of CIA. It was a good school and it was a good program, but I would critique and people thought I was kind of being a jerk. And I would say, no, I'm pushing you. I'm trying to give you feedback. And I want you to do the same to me. And they wouldn't. It would be just bitter if it was, but they wouldn't give me real feedback. And the teachers would pat me on the back and say, you're doing a good job. Maybe try oils next time. That's good. And I would say, no, I want to be better. Tell me how to be better. Tell me how I suck. And I
Yeah.
wasn't getting that. And then as soon as I'm around a bunch of punk rock kid caricature artists, I was getting that. I was getting it in droves. And I thought, like, I don't want to go to school. I want to be around this group of people who's showing me new artists, encouraging what I like, and telling me I suck. It's great.
Yeah.
Because I'll get better if I think I suck, and if they show
Yeah.
me how I suck. Yeah, I worked with Aaron Philby and Ken Nafu and Nate Kapnicki and Dan Hay and Dino Kasserline, Nate Graham, Dion Sosha, all my second year in
That's
SeaWorld.
nuts.
Yeah, Aaron Philby and Nate Kapnicki's first year were with me, like second or third year at SeaWorld.
Yeah.
It was funny. They were terrible when they started. I mean, we all were, but they were horrible. But they had so much passion and they were so punk rock about it.
Yeah.
They liked getting in trouble for trying things, and so I was just. They were so fun. I felt really lucky that I could see them grow.
Right after he got done talking about his retail background, we inevitably got into his publishing projects, which included his book called Rejects, which is a compilation of his rejected retail sketches that he did when he worked in the amusement parks, and also into a book that he published by Dan Hay called Blubber Lubber, which is a compilation of Dan Hay's sketches. And so we'll pick back up with that. That's the only reason I know about Dan Hay is because of that book.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I found out about him. I think it was Sean Gardner had it.
Yeah.
So, and he's like, Allie, you have to check out his stuff. Like, it reminds me of your stuff. And I looked at him like, oh my gosh, this guy's awesome. So, like, that's how I know Dan Hay's name is because of that book.
Well, all the drawings in the very back of Rejects that are a little more extreme, drawing all the artists that I worked with, that was because of him. One day he asked me, he saw me drawing someone and I was trying to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept asking me, why do you keep saying you're trying to get it right? And I said, because, I have a picture in my head of how it needs to be. And he kind of shrugged and he was always like, I don't know, whatever. And so I said, why? What are you thinking? He's like, I don't know. I kind of want to ask you a question, but I don't know. And I said, no, go ahead. Do you think there's like one correct answer with a caricature? And I was 23. So I said, yeah, of course there is. If you figure everything out and see a person the right way and practice it and everything, there's one formula that will really work that you can aspire to. And he's like, I think you're wrong. I think there's a million ways to draw everyone. I was like, really? What? And then he said, yeah. And then he drew me that day, and it looked completely different from the other drawings of me that he had done. Yeah. But it still looked like me. So then that was a virus in my head. I had to try to figure out, okay, so what is it that I can do with each drawing that's completely unique to that drawing in that moment? Just one idea, express it, get a likeness. And then the next time, if it was the same person, just try something totally different. And so I started trying to do that. And in the back of Rejects, you'll see, like, my friend Nate Graham, there's a couple pages where the same person is on two different pages next to each other. And that was an experiment to say, this day I'm going to draw this person, and then a week later I'm going to draw the same person. I'm going to do it totally different, and I want them both to have a great likeness. Yeah. And Dan is the person who taught me that. It's a really good group of people down there.
Keep rubbing it in, Joe.
Right?
Just keep rubbing it in.
Right place, right time. Yeah. And I had it's weird. I have so many good memories. Like I only had one root canal and had one tooth pulled and replaced in my entire life. And it started hurting when I was at I think the New Jersey park where Stacy was it Sesame Place or something?
Yeah, that's her park.
I was there for like 2 or 3 days, and Bo was giving me such a hard time, and I was drawing, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be here. So I started, it's like sad, crying, cracked tooth in every drawing, just as a test. And Stacy went and got me some ibuprofen, but it didn't do anything. And as soon as I got back to Florida, I had a root canal. It's just funny, all those associated memories with those trips, because there's so many great people that I met through that are still such good friends. Like at the caricature convention this year, I went back and I saw Stacy across the room. I only really know Stacy through friends and through these like 2 days or 3 days at the park. That's how we really know each other. That's it. But it's like an old best friend. We just ran up to each other and hugged each other. And that's what's amazing about having worked in the theme parks, as I'm sure you experienced, is there's people that
totally.
You lifelong friends just like that.
Yeah.
And you see them and it's like you pick up where you left off. Those conventions.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's what I got with the fairs, because I sort of had that at the parks, but then I started doing the fairs and stuff, and you just have this intense like 10-day we're living together
Yeah.
24/7 kind of togetherness. So you have to be at least be able to work with the people that you're with. But that's where I developed some of my strongest friendships.
That's funny. I even hit a point where speaking of Commons,
It always comes back to Commons with former Commons employees,
it's
always.
a beautiful, beautiful family that we all had.
Yeah.
Jeff Russell showed me one time when I was drawing someone who dropped a photo off at the stand. He said, here's something I do sometimes. And he grabbed like a purple color stick or a red color stick, and he just drew like 3 big shapes. And then he tore it off and slid it underneath, and you can kind of see it through. And he's like,
Yeah.
you got a guide. Don't forget that that's what your idea is. And I thought like, whoa, that's cool. So I started doing this thing. People started calling it under-sketching or pre-sketching or pre-drawing, whatever they want to call it. But I got a lot of crap for that because I was doing it when I was training artists. And they were saying it's a crutch for people who don't know what they're doing and pushing it and aren't fast enough. It's wasting paper and it wastes time. And that's all pretty true. But I was at a point where I respected that, but I knew that I wasn't going to continue doing this forever. Or if I didn't approach it the way I wanted to approach it, I was going to quit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be in an environment where someone tells me how to do art and I know I'm doing it well. And they're not going to push me more than I push myself. So I don't need to be told how to do it. But there was still that thing where Rich Common would say, you're not hired to draw a caricature, you're hired to sell a caricature. And I understood that. I admired that, but I had to draw it because I was the artist. So, at a certain point, I would get in these debates with Dino Casterline about the cost of paper and everything. And we finally worked out a deal where I was paying for extra reams of paper just so I could do free sketches. And we took a little bit out of my paycheck each time we were down reams, and we compromised. Like I was the art lead at the time, but I didn't have any compensation, which sometimes art leads did, but I knew that, and I was okay with it because I knew that I got away with the art that I wanted.
Yeah.
It's amazing how people are willing to work things out with you as long as you're on their level.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to pay for extra paper just so I could do my under-sketching.
Oh, man. Oh, that sucks.
But on the flip side, it was always fun to push in the opposite direction. Like because I was seen as a little punk rock when I was doing that to the management, I thought, how do you push back in the same punk rock manner, but prove yourself? I'm going to set the record. I'm going to set the company record. So that summer, I set a new company record. It only lasted like a year and a half, I think, or a year. But for the sales in one day.
Oh, nice.
That was one of those
What was it?
crack your fingernails and say, all right, now leave me alone.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a lot less then. It was like $1,280 or something.
Yeah.
People sell ridiculous amounts now, but it was.
I think the highest might be 2,700 or something like that.
Insane. That is insane.
But frames and stuff are really expensive. So if you start selling frames, you're already up.
And the prices might be different now. I don't know. I just know that at the time I was at the front stand at SeaWorld, which was really good at the beginning of the day and really good at the end of the day. And I came in early and stayed a little late. I didn't do the most I could have done. The guy who had the company record and had the SeaWorld record was sitting right there next to me, and he's so competitive. His name is Edwin Santana, and he is a great guy, but he's so competitive with working there, and he's all about making a dollar. And he drew great pictures. He's probably still there. He does these beautiful drawings that are really fun, and he's very consistent. Makes people really happy. But it was burning him all day because I had him all day long. And then I just kind of like started giving him drawings at the end of the day. Like, no, man, I'm tired. You take this one. He's like, bro, you got a company record. You should keep going. I'm like, no, go ahead. And I thought that
good.
In a weird way, I was rubbing it in a little, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
It was great for Dino to come in and go like, oh, you got a new record. I was like, yeah, guess what? I did a bunch of under sketches that day too.
Yeah, I even slowed down a little bit. No bigs.
I took 2 punches. Thanks.
Yeah.
No, people scattered it like the next year though. It's just fun to try to do. It's fun to, it's like trying to flex a muscle and say like, can I do this? Especially when everyone sees you as someone who drags your feet or is all about the art and not about selling. I get it and I can do it because, you know, tipping all the way in one direction, I think that's probably a mistake for anyone to do. There's a lot of artists that I would work with and I think they liked that I would draw really funny and they would try to draw really funny and say like, oh, who cares about sales? But their funny drawings didn't have a likeness or weren't that clean. And then couldn't make good sales if they tried. And this isn't knocking them, just saying like they didn't go through that experience and try to understand what the job was. It's the same thing with here at an animation studio where we have a lot of things we want to do and a lot of times we work with clients and some are better than others, but at the end of the day, if we're making like a Chipotle commercial, we're making a Chipotle commercial. And we probably did with that about as artistic a job as we can do, making it feel like a film that had nothing to do with selling. but it's a message they wanted to tell. But at the end of the day, like if their head of marketing says, we want you to change this one thing, you have to find a way to satisfy both people. I think that's super important. And that's the kind of problem solving that caricature is, that I think has been the most valuable thing I've learned throughout anything I do, is you have to try to figure out how to make yourself happy, make someone else happy, and solve a problem that has boundaries.
I mean, any criticism is valuable, and that's, yeah, like you said, it's the most important thing to take away from that is just being able to work with other people and being able to make those snap decisions to create something that will maybe please everybody or at least get close in the end and still satisfy what you want.
Yeah.
Because even like the undersketching and stuff, like you still had to satisfy your sales requirements, but you still had to satisfy what you wanted out of it.
That's something that I talk to with the artists here. The goal should always be to find what you want to do and what you see working and find a way for that to overlap with what you're being asked to do. And that can be really hard, but it should be the most interesting thing about it, is to problem solve that and make yourself happy. And you're so satisfied when you can make someone over there happy and yourself happy with doing one thing that you thought was very difficult. I don't know. I guess on the flip side, I get frustrated when I see a lot of artists who are getting into animation now. They kind of do one thing their way, and it's a little kitsch. Like, I draw characters that look like this with this color overlay layer in Photoshop, and it makes it look interesting. And then they'll tag it. This is a pet peeve of mine lately. People tag a doodle with character design on Twitter and Facebook and stuff. And a doodle isn't character design. You can say that it's character design. That's great. What are you designing? It looks like you doodled. It ends up being like a farce for an actual problem-solving process. And that's the one thing that's, I think, most important, is you can have someone who does really appealing characters and really appealing doodles, but as soon as you sit them down and say, okay, what does that look like from behind? And when it moves, what is distinct about its hands? How does that fit into the story? And that's where the problem solving, and that's where the real work of character design comes in. Just an appealing drawing. I find so many people going and trying to get through with that only. Oh, that's my one rant for today. How about that?
No, that's good. I've done that once or twice. I will never do it again now.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, totally. Like, that's one of those things, like you call other artists out, and like I'm totally cool with that because that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And even like when I did it, I'm like, nah.
Sorry, I'm kind of
being. I did it anyway, just so people would see it,
Yeah.
But no, it totally makes sense.
When I see it is, what are you trying to gain from that? That's what that's my curmudgeonly old man on a porch way of approaching it. Is like, what are you doing when you tag something character design and it's a drawing of someone at a coffee shop? Are you saying that you're a character designer? Are you trying to get a job as a character designer? Is this your character design? Or do you just want people to look at it?
Yeah. Or looking at character design who don't know any better?
Yeah. So
yeah, I go for that third one because I know better, but I also want more people to see my stuff. Yes, it's like, I'll just tag it with whatever. Well, so I'll be honest with that. That one's on me.
That's one thing running into, though. But I think that's the culture that we're all kind of creating online. Is there's people want to retweet, people want to like, people want to share, but they don't want to actually be involved or read the content. People retweet, but they don't even read. They don't even read stuff. So that, I think, breeds things like hashtagging with certain categories so that they get lumped into a share, so that you get almost like credit or recognition for a category in the world. But where's the substance? That's I don't know. I can go on rants about that kind of stuff forever.
No, it's Jordan goes through the same thing. He's run a couple of Kickstarters, so he's pretty seasoned at this. The whole Kickstarter thing, he runs into the same problem where he's like, I've had like 15 people like it, nobody shared it, it's not going to go anywhere. Although now with Facebook, if you do like it, sometimes it'll pop up in your friends' feeds. Yeah. So I guess.
And then that makes me reevaluate everything about how I treat social media. Like if I'm on Twitter going, ha ha ha, star, ha ha ha, star, I shouldn't. I should really bring some substance to it, or just let it go.
Yeah.
But I think I
try. Yeah, I feel like in Twitter it doesn't matter as much. I don't know. Twitter is very much a like, not even it's just information.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
so I feel like it doesn't matter as much on Twitter. Like if it makes you laugh, star it because it's a sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Who cares? And then on Instagram, like if it looks cool, if it's like something that I like, I'll like it, but I will pass over things. But yeah, Facebook's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying though. We have those rants too sometimes.
I think.
Yeah. What does a like actually mean? Or even like with and this gets more into like charity work. Like when you like something of a charity's, what does that do? I guess it does bring awareness, and you kind of saw that with the whole bucket challenge.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like that kind of spread really quickly, and that used social media. And yes, people liked it, but the more people that liked it, the more people saw it. So then you have a bigger chance of reaching your bigger audience.
What's really cool about that, though, and I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, go ahead.
It made people do something. It made them actually do something. So I don't
Yeah.
think anyone liked a sentence. They liked a video, or they made their own video and they actually
Right.
participated. So it brought an actual participation. And it's not just, I don't think that had momentum because people clicked a button. I think it was
Right.
because people were doing something physically.
Yeah. Well, they had to. It was one of those,
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
it one of those, like, if you don't answer this letter within 15 minutes,
Yeah.
your dog's going to die. Like, they used to handwrite when you were in elementary school.
That's funny.
I don't want bad luck for 10 years. I remember those. And now I see them on Facebook. I'm like, oh, I'm not even going to touch this because I just don't want to deal with it.
I know. I can't be angry though because like no one owes me anything when it's a Kickstarter. I'm literally asking for money to make a book. It's one of those things like I don't want people to think that, oh, that's great, it's going to happen. And I think that happens a lot with Kickstarters. When I started thinking about it that way, I started searching out more comic Kickstarters and realizing like if this looks cool, I'm actually going to give them 10 or 20 or 40 bucks because it's so much work to do that.
Yeah. Wait, Joe Bluhm started like commenting on things, and then your Kickstarter came out, and I'm like, that's why he started getting involved.
I'm using you all. Does it feel like I don't have a present?
A little bit. This is the most I've ever seen out of you ever. But
really? Oh, except for like 8 years ago, maybe. It was all the time. Like when I started my blog, it was all about the theme park thing, and I updated every single day.
Yeah,
but
8 years ago, I wouldn't have known about you.
That's true.
So I'm not a good person to even ask that question.
Yeah.
No, like it was just in the past little bit. That's when you started popping up a lot.
Yeah. Well, I started realizing how much I appreciate the community of friends that I have. And even if they're not friends, like people like you that I don't know that well, who we have mutual friends, or at least we have a mutual connection with what we do or did or whatever. I started appreciating that because when I was in New York, I was freelancing and I worked in an animation studio and then freelance. And I had a community there. Local. Like I said, I went to Society of Illustrators and I lived near my friend and we made personal projects together. And I started kind of, after a while, pulling out of the caricature and the comic convention circuit. And it's amazing how entrenched and how friendly you get with that group when you're doing it multiple times a year. And then I thought, like, I'm totally going to focus on this animation thing. I promised myself I was going to work on filmmaking, not just commercial animation. And so I was here and I was doing it. And I thought, I'm going to focus. That's all I'm going to do. So I stopped going to the caricature convention. I stopped going to Comic Cons. I stopped self-publishing. And I stopped doing illustration. I just turned all the faucets off. And I focused on this. And it worked. It worked for us and for me. But then I realized I turned around and all my friends are just not there. Like they went home. And it's like, oh, shit. So then I started trying to blog again. But then when I did, people were like, oh, you're back. No caricatures? And it's well, I'm
community. They're
into
very harsh.
Character design and concept art now. And and they're all like, okay.
Yeah, it's a harsh community. It's if you stop doing caricatures, they're like, why aren't you doing? We don't care about you anymore.
Do you read a lot?
I do read.
Do you think that's valuable? Because I read, but I don't read a lot of novels. I don't read a lot of lofty stuff, and I'm trying to.
Yeah.
And it's not for lack of the ability or not for lack of want. It's just the way things are. I end up doing other things with my time, and then I get into a novel and I'm really into it, but it takes me forever to finish it just because of how much time I put towards it. But I go through this internal debate of I'll read things like I'll read Donna Tartt or I'll read Philip Roth or something, and it feels like it's doing a certain thing. And from a point of view of someone who I now make movies or short films or commercials and I'm involved in writing in some capacity, I read this and I can see what they're doing. It's like I see behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And I get what they're doing, but a lot of people keep pushing to say, if you're going to write a novel, here, read this. They know what they're doing. And I'm a firm believer, like I said, about asking advice but never taking it. Also, I love the Steve Jobs sort of thing, and I'm starting to really understand this. Anything that is created was created by a person, and there is no perfect way to do it. There's just the way you're going to do it. So I see that, and I kind of want to write how I write. I kind of want to approach things the way I want to, and I don't want people to try to apply their method or an approved sort of process or style to it. But then I think, will that hold me back from getting my first thing out there? I don't know. How
Yeah,
do you feel about
that's a
that?
tough call. The best thing, and we just had a big discussion about Ira Glass, where he did his thing about, you have to have good inspirations if you want to aspire to be that good. So I think it's important if you're going to read. I don't think you need to read ad nauseum, but what I do think is that you need to read good stuff. So as long as you're reading good stuff and you can recognize good work, you can aspire to be that good. And I
Hmm.
think it's important to read things that are in your vein of what you like. So I read tons of Neil Gaiman because I find him awesome,
Hmm.
and a lot of graphic novels, Frank Miller and Grant Morrison and
Hmm.
and all those greats. And I try to get into the classics as well. So like I love horror, so I read Frankenstein and
Oh
Dracula, and
man,
I'm
those two are
getting through
amazing.
Dune right now. So good.
Yeah.
Dracula blew my mind,
What drives me
and
crazy is no one's
Frankenstein.
made Frankenstein the way it's written. No one's made a movie version of
Yeah,
that. No one
seriously.
puts him
Why?
under the floorboards for 6 months and has him deal with the winter. I want to see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I want to see the more humanized Frankenstein.
Yeah,
Why can't we have that?
I don't know.
Because that was brilliant. That
That's
was
good
that
advice
was
though,
beautiful.
because
Yeah, so I
it's
don't
like
think
if
it
you're gonna cook, you want to make sure you have a good palate and taste all the
yeah.
right foods and understand what you're tasting.
I really firmly believe that like if you're gonna read, just read good things. Read people who are acclaimed because they're acclaimed for a reason. Like there's a reason why their stories are really good. Even if different authors come at it different directions, objectively they're still good for a reason. Like
Hmm.
you can't just do your own thing. Like it may not be objectively good. Like just because like two different genres are two different genres, like
Hmm.
you could have portraits over here, caricatures are over here.
Yeah.
There's a reason why this portrait is good and this caricature is good, even if they're in two different veins. Like
There's
you can
something
still
also
tell a good thing.
there's something strange to some of the writers that like I mean like a Jack Kerouac or something who sort of does their own thing because of the strength of their vision or their ideas. And I look at kind of on the flip side, but in the same way, like Anthony Bourdain, who just started writing when he was a chef, and he didn't read that much. He's never written, and he decided that he's going to speak his voice the way he talks.
Yeah.
And I see the strength in that. And there's times when I'll read, like I'm reading American Pastoral by Philip Roth right now, and I that Seeing Behind the Curtains, I see it with Donna Tartt in the book I'm reading, and it's great. But with Philip Roth, which I know people would probably hate me to say this, who are bookophiles or whatever,
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like what he's doing. I don't like that he's squeezing culture in a way that says, I am so Jewish, and here's the details about the Jewish lifestyle as a child. And
Yeah.
I'm going to go through all the little details about what it's like for a teenage boy to play baseball with sounds and sights and bring you back. And it feels very artificial to me. And I feel happy in the fact that I can see that he's doing that. But I have very strong opinions about that. So I know I want to go in a different direction. So I'm trying to find what I can get out of his writing because it's so lauded.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's something good in there, and maybe I just need to get through like two of his books or something.
Maybe.
But I'm going through that struggle where like I don't want to read too much. I don't want to think I have to do too much because I believe in my voice right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to be able to craft better because I don't
Right.
write a lot.
Right.
Maybe that's the goal, is like the crafting of it. I bought this little book by, I forget his name. It's called The Elements of Style, and it's like this little tiny paperback book that some professor wrote in the 70s that has been just the Bible for writers. And it's just all grammar and form.
Hmm.
Maybe I just need more of that. I don't
Maybe.
know. Maybe I should
It's
start writing
possible.
and sharing it with other writers.
I think that's important too. It's the same thing with art. You just got to get it out there. You
Hmm.
just got to do it, and you just got to get it out there,
Yeah.
and just keep doing it, even if it's not that good. And then you have to recognize why it's not good, and you have to fix it for later.
Yeah.
Talk it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you have to have your voice. Like it has to sound like you. It's the same thing with your art. That whole Disney tree thing went around Facebook
So,
for a few days. It's where I think it was back when Walt Disney was putting out his like how-tos or his,
oh, and
like
they all painted a tree.
they all painted the tree. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's awesome. But it's like it's kind of like that. Like they all had their own voice, and it was very strong in their style and what they wanted to express, and they didn't copy off of each other. But it was definitely them. I feel like that's the point.
Yeah.
If you have a strong voice, like you just got to do it, and you just got to tweak it so that it's also objectively good and it makes sense for your voice.
That's good. I should probably find some writing group or some community to be a part of, because the people that I work with are the only sort of feedback and support I get, and a lot of them have very strong taste. So they end up giving me taste feedback, not craft feedback.
Yeah.
And that's tricky. That can be hard. I'll tell you why I don't do it in a retail environment, and I never will again. I was working and training. The last training trip I did, it was at SeaWorld in San Diego, and it was with my friends. It was with Nate Kapnicki, and it was with Bo Hufford, and it was 2 days from being finished with the whole training trip. I was drawing, and it was a typical story that you normally have, where you're drawing someone, and then the husband doesn't like it, but the wife does, and she's the one that's getting drawn. Wasn't a big deal, but the difference was the guy behind me was about 6'8", maybe 300 pounds, tattoos crawling all the way up his shaved head and his neck,
Yeah.
a big Hawaiian shirt, scars, tear tattoos off his eye. And I learned through conversation that he'd just gotten out of prison, and
Yeah.
he was telling me he didn't like it. He was really mad. And the wife liked it, but they just baited it. And I said, you don't have to draw. And I was really all about customer service and setting a good example for the guys at Commons, because I didn't work for Commons
Yeah.
anymore. I was done, but I was doing this training trip as like a little gig. And so I was really respectful about
Right.
how to handle customers, and really, really good at it at this point. So I set it on the counter, and I said, you don't have to buy it. I'm going to set it right here if you change your mind. I didn't mean to offend anyone. That's what we do. We draw funny, and, blah, blah, blah. And they're mulling around, and he doesn't know how to handle it, because he obviously saw that I was being nice, and he didn't expect that. So he's looking at the mat while I'm drawing this teenage girl, and I'm just getting started. And he takes it and starts trying to hide as he's walking away, stealing this drawing in a mat. And I said, excuse me, sir, if you want to buy that, you can buy it. You can purchase it. But if not,
Yeah.
I have to keep it here because I did make it. It is ours.
What?
And he started yelling at me, started freaking out, cursing. I won't use his language, but he was saying that I'm not a nice person, and that I accused him of stealing, and he's cut people for that, and you should have seen the last guy that accused him of that, and all this rhetoric and this garbage. The girl that I was drawing, this little teenager, looked so paranoid. So I told him that I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just saying you are physically taking an object that this company owns, and I have to pay for it if you take it without paying for it. And that's all I'm saying, is that if you want it, you can buy it. So he slammed it down. He was really mad, walked away. And a few minutes later, as I'm drawing this teenage girl, he comes up behind me and says he's going to come back and cut me. The little girl looked scared. I tried to keep her calm.
Yeah.
And my hand was shaking as I was drawing, which has happened a few times in the 5 or 6 years I've done it for other reasons, other stories. But he walked away. I get done.
Yeah.
I'm kind of sweating, but trying to laugh it off like it's not a big deal. I tell Bo, I'm a little nervous. And then I see the guy about an hour later, half hour later, walking by the stand about 20 feet away with his hands in his pockets. And he's trying to keep an eye on me, walking by, looking at me. And when we look at him, he kind of walks away. And he kept doing that back and forth, a little closer each time. So I went to the break room, and I kind of had a panic attack. The only time in my life I've ever had that. And Nate Kapnicki was a great friend. He talked me down. He calmed me down. But I mean it. Nate Kapnicki sat there in the lunchroom going, "Oh man, that's cool. It's okay, man. You don't gotta worry about it. We should talk to Bo. You could probably take the day off. Look, man, I love you." And he was just talking. And of all people, him working at SeaWorld, and when they just started calling themselves the Beast Heads. And I worked with him when he was a kid in SeaWorld, Florida, and this was like 6 years later. And to have him calming me down
that's
was
so
really nice.
Oh, Nate
It
Cap,
was
he's
really
such
cool.
a good guy.
And then I told Bo, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm never doing this anymore. And he said, I'll tell you what, we'll get security to go back to the stand. Why don't you come back to the stand and let someone take their break? I'll come with you. He came back. Bo Hufford, amazing guy, just jumping around, clapping, having fun, keeping the energy. We had security near the stand, keeping an eye out. The guy did keep walking by. Then he said, for the rest of the day, let's just go to each stand, to each artist, and just draw them. I promised them you would draw them. And just give them some tips, whatever you're feeling about caricature. And then we'll take tomorrow off. You and I'll go to the beach.
Wow.
And we did that. And I haven't worked in a theme park since then. And I won't again. Yeah, it scared me. He's a big dude. And he could have hurt me.
Oh my God.
And I'm a very peaceful person. I'm the dude from Lebowski.
Yeah.
Man, this is fun.
Yeah, I like doing these interviews. I find myself talking a lot longer than I anticipated.
That's
We've been on
good.
the phone, like almost 2.5 hours?
Yeah, probably.
Holy crap.
Well,
No, that's cool.
It's good. It was very natural.
Yeah, good. I remember hearing in one of your little podcasts that you're like, I love when people tell me that their work inspired me. So this will be my ego inflation for this whole thing. Your work was one of the first works that inspired me to actually be good. You know, we talked about
Really?
taste. Like, I'm like, yeah, this is good stuff. I want to do this.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's what really pushed me in kind of an art desert to be good was looking at your stuff. I think Dave Cook had your book and everything too. He's like,
Yeah.
look at this. You have to look at this.
Oh, that's cool.
So I did. So there
That's
you
awesome.
go.
Thanks.
There you go. A little back rub. Just rub your back. There you go. Thanks again to Joe Bluhm for sitting down and chit-chatting with me for what felt like a very short conversation, but what ended up being an extremely long conversation for which you only heard a bit of it. There were a lot of things that we discussed that I didn't include in this podcast, but I think maybe I'll work out some way for you guys to get extra content that isn't included in these episodes. So keep your eyes open for that. And you can follow that kind of progress on the Facebook fan page at It's Supposed to Be Funny, and also on the website, it'ssupposed-to-be-funny.com. So thanks, Joe. You're the best. Wink. Also, thanks again to Twin Day for the music. He rocks my world with these beats. They're just so beautiful. And keep in mind that It's Supposed to Be Funny comes out every 2 weeks. But in the weeks that it doesn't come out, you can always enjoy the ISCast, which is the International Society of Caricature Artists podcast, hosted by the president, Nolan Harris. Very cool guy. Check out his podcast on SoundCloud.com, and you can find it there with the name ISCast. So before I end this episode, I had this idea where I would issue a bit of a challenge kind of based upon what we talked about during the episode. And this episode, we talked a little bit about critique and getting other people's opinions and making sure that we can do the best artwork that we can without worrying about our egos. And so I think that a good challenge for this week is that if you're working on something, anything, show it to a friend, a group of friends, people you respect their opinions on, and ask them, what do you think? And don't accept oh, that's good as an answer. Tell them, okay, well, if it is good, why is it good? And if it's just good, how can I improve it? Because the only way that we can get better is knowing what we're doing wrong. Or by not even necessarily being wrong, but just that we look at our work all the time, and a pair of fresh eyes is always a good idea. So I guess that's it. That's the challenge. If any of you have good stories or you want to share anything with me, you can email me at Ali, A-L-I, at it'ssupposed-to-be-funny.com. And if you send me any good stories, maybe I'll include them in an episode, because I think that would be neat. So I guess that's it. Thanks again for being awesome. Thanks again for supporting me and for listening. And we'll see you next time. Bye.